All right, well, I just want to say welcome to Wild Hearts. I think this is episode 25. It's May 20th.
Is it really?
And this is my first time meeting Emily, and oh my gosh, she has a great home with beautiful energy, and after being in a really tight bus, it feels just so good.
You're like very zenned out or something right now.
Yeah, just like dropping in. Just dropping in.
That was funny.
Yeah, just put the game face
Good
up.
morning. We are like so grateful for Emily right now.
Yay.
We are in Montclair, New Jersey at her home, and she just made us a French press coffee.
Oh yeah, there's
So that's like, I'm like really excited about
yeah, it really is. So thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Having
Thanks
us.
for coming. I'm so
Yeah.
glad it worked out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for people who like don't know, we're kind of, since we're on the road and living out of the bus right now, we're kind of like every week just like trying to figure out who's going to be on the podcast next week. This is like a new little game we're playing. And it's been really cool to like see how it unfolds.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad that you're here.
Yeah.
Or we're here.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
And I believe it's very conducive to our whole Wild Hearts theme here because, you know, 1 week we might be on the bus, 1 week we might be in a house, 1 week it might just be on a phone talking to Domla 3,000 miles away.
Yeah.
You never know. So I hope you guys can bear with us. You know, I think it's like life. It's not always perfect, and we're just trying to embrace that. So bringing a podcast, get out of here.
No. I know. Emily was like, do you want to do it in the RV or in the house? I was like, can we please come in your house?
In the house.
Yeah.
I was like,
Yeah.
please,
Anything.
please let us in your home.
Well, it's funny because I said no joke. Like, so this is me, Emily. I'm very empathic as well. Like,
Yeah.
I identify as an empath. So
Yeah.
like the second I stepped in your door, my shoulders just went.
Yeah, there's a great, it feels
Like,
nice
oh.
in here.
Yeah.
Oh my god! So
Yeah.
yeah. Thank you. Like
Yeah.
seriously.
Oh, thanks for making it.
All right, so I gotta
Let's
do my
dive in.
thing. This is my thing. Don't mind me. Welcome to Wild Hearts Podcast, episode number 25, May 20th. Yeah.
That's for GarageBand, for anyone who wonders.
All right, guys. So, in all seriousness, let's get this sucker started. So, I'm going to tell you who Emily is here. I'm going to introduce her because this is part of who she is. It's very conducive to her work. She's got an awesome intro, so I can't wait to read it to you.
Yeah.
How do you say her last name?
Eley.
Emily Eley is a career coach and gender equality consultant specializing in helping people own their space and live out loud. She works to help people reconnect to their most authentic selves. Honestly, this is my favorite line. I've already read this a couple times. The person you were before the world got a hold of you. Love that. Emily believes most people don't need more education or letters after their name to land that dream job, start their own business, or get that promotion. You already have everything you need inside to crush this game. She challenges her clients through coaching to tap into their very creative side so that they can get unstuck, think outside the box, and get back to their roots to finally work in their most passionate space. Her expertise lies in helping individuals get the credit they deserve at work, be their own best self-advocate professionally, and get paid what they're worth.
Yes. Hire her.
What is that? Like,
Let's
can
just start there.
I
Hire
need
her.
to.
if I can't
Like,
break
wait,
the mic,
can we
I want
actually
to
hire you?
Yeah, seriously.
Let's talk business plan,
Let's
guys.
talk business
Let's go.
plan right
Yeah,
now.
let's not even talk about like your story. Let's just
Like, truly, who needs that right now?
Truly, can this be the console?
I
Um,
do. Yeah.
So welcome, Emily.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So, do you feel like that covers all of you? Do you want to tell anyone else like the things about yourself? Well, other overviews.
There's a cat
There's a
crying
cat.
outside. Zucchini's like, I want to be a part of the podcast.
Oh, yeah,
podcast.
this is a live podcast.
Yeah, I feel like that covers like a pretty good chunk of like what I do. I work mostly with women, but I do have a couple men, and actually one of like the prerequisites for being a male client is you have to be an empath. So
No
Really?
way.
pretty good.
Like,
Yeah.
legit.
Yeah, I am. I have a couple male clients that have done really well with me, and
Okay.
I was looking over like what is their common characteristic, and
Right.
all of them were incredibly empathic. They were willing to like look at their shit, for lack of a better word,
Cool.
and
Cool.
yeah, willing to be vulnerable and explore. And
Oh, man.
so
Glasses off, man.
yeah,
This is great. All right.
yeah, it's fun. I
Cool.
really love it. I'm thoroughly enjoying running this business. It's like my favorite thing to do. I get excited to wake up every morning and do it.
Well, that's so. I love that you say that because I mean, it hasn't always been like that for you,
Yeah,
career-wise,
career-wise,
job-wise, or
correct. Yeah, it has not.
do you want to maybe dive into that a little bit, or you
Yeah,
just
sure.
like take people back to like as far back as you want to go?
Yeah. So let's see. How far back do we want to go?
How far back?
Well, I think based on the conversation we had in the kitchen, like try and give them your roots so they can like understand like why you're like you being here now. How like,
Yeah.
Yeah, we're in Montclair.
Yeah, so we're in New Jersey now. I'm originally from Vermont, and then mountains, beautiful space.
Still.
Sean never passed it.
Yeah, so I moved to Colorado, I think in like 2014 would be my guess. And I had been like a yoga instructor and a personal trainer. I've been kind of like running my own practice out of a couple different studios in Burlington, and just feeling like I had reached the limit of the direction I was going in. And I was like, I'm still eager for more. I still really want to learn. I'd done half my bachelor's at that point in human geography and Middle Eastern studies. And I was like, maybe I want to go back to school, maybe not. I'm not really sure. My older sister lives in Colorado. And so I actually took about 4 weeks to drive cross country. A friend came with me for half of the journey, and I drove down the whole East Coast through New Orleans and Texas and New Mexico and up to Colorado, kind of trying to figure out where I wanted to live. I wasn't really sure.
Cool.
I knew I was going to stop in Colorado to see my sister. And by the time I got there, I was like pretty exhausted, as you might be able to relate. I was sick of being in a car. I was like, okay, I'm done. I'm ready to like put roots somewhere for a little bit.
Yeah.
And Boulder is such a beautiful place. So landed there for a bit and then decided to go back to school, finished my BA actually in human geography still. So that was cool to come back to like a degree 4 years later and still feel really passionate about it. So I finished that up and then kind of fell into transportation policy and government relations work. And based off of like my love and passion for biking and alternative transportation, but ended up kind of in a bit of a toxic work environment. And it was, I was really struggling with asserting myself and using my voice and taking care of myself. And I was finding like every lunch break, I was calling my boyfriend at the time, now husband. I was calling him crying. I was like, I can't do this. I don't know what I'm doing. This is so hard. And, you know, without getting into like too much details, it was, you know, we ended up moving here to New Jersey. Matt got a job offer and I kind of pinned my leaving that work environment on like, well, we just have to move. I guess I can't stay here anymore. And I didn't really take, I wouldn't say I took authority over that, which was at the time, I think the best I could do. And in hindsight, you know, if I was to go back now, I would have done better. But I, you know, kind of left like, whoops, I guess I have to go. Sorry, this isn't working anymore. See you later. Bye, and ran out and moved here. And it took me 6 months to get a job. And I was like blown away at how long that took. I was like, this is insane. How can it take this long to get a job? Later, I figured out that it takes on average 6 to 9 months to get a job. So I was right on track. I was actually at the early end.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and that's for someone who's like diligently pursuing
Working
work,
hard at it,
right?
yeah.
Like, yeah, they're really putting the work in. So I got a job working in women and family health, which was kind of more the area I wanted to be moving into. I really wanted to be working with women around like education, health, empowerment, advocacy kind of work. So I got that job and then realized that I am just an entrepreneur at heart and I really don't like working for people. And I'm big into efficiencies. And so when I see inefficiency, it's like my innate desire to resolve that and to create a better system. I love systems. And the nonprofit world is, I'm sure some of you can relate, is not overly efficient a lot of the time. And I think a lot of that has to do with resources and mindset. And, you know, it's like, we've always done it this way. We're going to continue doing it this way. And I was like, I just don't, that doesn't resonate for me. Like, if you can see that there's a better way, why wouldn't you want to take that? So took a lot of time and some soul searching. And I was like, all right, if I really want to start my own business, like what is it that I have to offer the world? Because I'm not going to just create some willy-nilly business that nobody needs. And what I realized was I was really good at finding jobs. Like after that process, I was like, I finally whittled it down into this very concrete system of like, this is exactly how you get a job. And if you do it well and you do it right, you can probably get it done in about 3 months. So I figured out that the key to getting a job is networking, which many people know. 87% of all jobs are gotten through networking. Only 13% are from an actual application. So yeah, so like once I figured that out, I was like, oh, I'm a big extrovert. I love talking. I love public speaking. I love meeting new people. So once I realized like all I had to do was just be me, I was like, oh, I get it. I can do this, right? And then I started to get the job offers, and I was like, but that's not really what I want. But I could teach someone how to do this, right? So that's when I decided to systematize exactly what I had done to get the job, my dream job, and turn that into a package. And I found a practice client, this wonderful woman who was like willing to kind of go on this journey with me. And I was like, all right, do these 8 steps and let's see what happens, right? And so that's where Eley coaching was started. And yeah, it kind of just took off from there. And I've got clients now that have been successful in as little as 6 weeks. Wow. They've had job offers and gone off and are doing new things. So that's pretty cool.
That's so incredible. I'm just like, keep thinking back on like a couple things here. Like, so for people who don't know, like I met Emily, I didn't even realize, I think we moved to Colorado the same year.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
2014?
Yeah.
I think so.
I think that's when I moved. Matt's better at dates.
Yeah.
So he remembers them all.
Matt, Emily's now husband,
yeah.
is my mom's, one of her best friend's son. Yeah. So yeah, Matt was probably like one of the only connections I had out in Colorado.
Yeah.
And then you guys are roommates.
Yes, we met on Craigslist.
So funny.
Yes.
Yeah.
I needed a roommate and he showed up, and the other woman we were living with, her name's Laura. Hi Laura, if you're listening. She and I interviewed him for the room, and I was like, Laura, I think he's too attractive. I think this is probably a bad idea. And she was like, zip it up. We need a valid candidate here.
Oh my gosh, that's
yeah, because he was like super responsible and clean shaven, and very polite. Yes, very fiscally responsible. Yeah. So yeah, so he was our roommate.
That's so funny, but I just think back because like I must have just been obviously like probably just moved to town and was like, I'm just gonna like go meet up with a friend or something. And then I remember meeting you, and I think you had just like, you were talking about some like yoga festival in like Burlington that you were like at, or like that. I think that's like my first like memory that you were teaching at or something.
Yeah. I used to lead meditation hikes for Wanderlust.
Yeah.
It's like
right. I was like some yoga thing in Burlington.
Exactly. Yeah, I did it in Colorado in Vail, and then I did it in Stratton, Vermont. Yeah.
So it's so cool to like think back of like that, like you, like that version of you, and then when we did photos, like that was when you were like just starting your business, which was like 2 weeks ago, but like was a while, like 6 months.
A little while ago, yeah.
And I feel like you just kind of like
I just skyrocketed. Yeah, I've had probably about like 500% growth every single month. Like it just keeps growing. The only month that dipped was April. When I was recently pregnant, it was weeks 8, 9, and 10 that I was just hella sick all day long, and it like my whole business just kind of like crushed and burned, and that was really challenging, and was actually the impetus for me hiring my current business coach that I just hired this month. Yeah. So she's teaching me how to automate and systematize aspects of my business that don't need me to be like hands-on 100%, but have up until now. I have been, right? Yeah. So she's kind of helping me get my business ready for maternity leave, which I'm super excited
about. Oh my gosh. I'm so excited to talk about that. But can you actually talk about like this idea of, you wrote about this in your bio sheet, like starting like before asking for help, or like before like hiring a coach, or before taking that class that you think you need, and just like starting. Yeah,
so this is a big thing that I coach on, especially as women. We are what I like to call like good students. And so we are all about like getting the credentials, getting all the classes, getting all the education. getting all the certifications before we start our journey. And what I'm a big fan of, and a woman actually named Lindsay Lathrop, who is another career coach who I work with in Burlington on our gender equity project, she was like, no. You just get a practice client. Like no certification, no training, like just try it, because you will find out so quickly if this is for you or if you even like this. And why would you invest thousands of dollars in a training program up front if you don't even know that like this is what's right for you, right? And so like that's been the way I've always led my life, is like it's not my job to be an expert. It's my job to facilitate space for you to grow. That is my job as a coach. It's not my job to be an expert on even career coaching. Like I'm not an expert on that. I'm an expert on leading you, like, and being a mirror and letting you figure out your way, right? And so if you're looking at it from that lens, then like what education do I truly need? I have my life experience that's gotten me here. I mean, I have a 500-hour in yoga, like, so there's that. Like I have some credentials behind me, and I'm now in an executive coaching program after I figured out like this is the path I really want to be on. Like I'm all about education. I love education, but I don't think it should be a barrier to entry, which it is for so many of us. We're like, I can't start that until I've done this. Well, why the hell not? Like, why can't you start? I don't understand, right? Like it's almost like with your podcast, like you didn't need to learn. I asked you if you knew all of these systems prior to starting. No, you figured it out as you went. And if you had told yourself, like, I can't start a podcast until I've learned all the ins and outs of podcasting, all the different systems I can use, like you might not have even started yet.
Oh, 100%.
Right? Like it's such a huge barrier.
Honestly, like having you talk about this is so exciting because it lines up so much what I personally believe. Because like there's all kinds of things here, like because what you said, why would you spend thousands of dollars on a program when you don't even know if you're gonna like it?
I don't know.
Okay, so let's look at one of the biggest systems that because you like systems, so I'll bring systems. Yeah. Let's look at one of the biggest systems in the United States. Oh, go to college, choose something at 18 years old.
At 18 years
you have
old.
no idea if you're gonna like it or not.
You're supposed to do forever.
And then you work out Walmart, and then you're like, oh, I can't get a job. I don't really like this. Let me go to Walmart. So that's just one whole can of worms. So I think for me, like I got an associate's in business because I had no idea what I was gonna do, but business has to do with everything.
Sure.
But for me, it's been like this mission of trying to make something work without having like this massive degree or this or this or this. And I think like you said, as you like go further into things, like probably deeper in the process and decide you like something, it makes sense to get certifications. But this idea of, I think I put it this way, you can put on a piece of paper 1,000 reasons why you can't do something or 1,000 reasons why you can. Like they're both going to still exist no matter which you choose. But it's like you just have to, in my eyes, like just start, figure it out as you go. Like we're super adaptable as human beings. Like we can literally learn anything if you're open to it, and you can create this space where you can literally create anything. I do believe that like for each individual, there's certain things you're going to be better at, obviously. But
we have innate skills.
But yeah, I just love that like kind of leap of faith, because I think I've always been the cliff diver is what I call myself. Yeah. Like started businesses, quit the job without a plan, like just the crazy shit. Yeah. But the crazy shit is like what has allowed this to be created. Sure. You know, so yeah, I love your philosophy on that. I think
I also like to, like starting my business without having a certification first allowed me to create aspects of my business and like aspects of my program that probably never would have come to fruition if I had done education first, because I would have learned there's a right way and a wrong way to do this. And I might not have gotten to stumble onto some of the things that I do that are incredibly influential, right? Like that really work for my clients and really work for me. And like I found them based off of reading and observing and listening to other people and trying things out and knowing things that work for me, and pulling things from like therapy and from yoga and from meditation. And like if I had gone on a traditional coach training program, like I might not have seen all of those avenues, and like my program wouldn't be what it is today.
That's where change comes from, right? Like that's where like the forward thinking and like real change like starts to happen for people, because if people are just following like the same traditional like trajectory, like that's why it's taking people 6 to 9 months to find a job, right?
Yep.
Because they're just trying the same things
Yep.
over and over again.
Absolutely.
I think that's so interesting too, because you talk about systems, and like what just came into my mind is like you go back to like I worked in some corporate jobs, right? And like you get someone that's like, have a system, it works, you just have to trust the process and trust it. And it's like, okay, and you do it, but there's like, and they're like, don't reinvent the wheel, this and this and that. But there's no creativity to it.
Yeah.
And I think the thing that actually, I said my favorite thing was in your thing. There's a lot of my favorite things in your, because
we were like reading Emily's bio. She like,
it was just a lot of what you said resonates. Like I'm like, oh god, this is me.
Yeah.
You know, because there was the aspect of, oh my god, I'm gonna lose my train of thought here. What were we just talking about?
creativity and business.
Oh yeah, like
Reinvent the wheel.
following a system, like you get why, like, because I did the thing where like, oh, let me try this job, and like did it for a year and a half, and then I feel that like soul's dying inside. This isn't working. Okay, let's try the next thing, and like, oh, I do really good for a year and a half, and then same feeling always would come up, kind of like what you described, like, oh, I found my dream job, but then I still wasn't happy. It's because there's this element of like, it becomes the same monotonous thing. It's a system. You have a system that works, which is great. Yeah, you're making good money, but it's a system that doesn't really allow a ton of creativity. And not to say maybe it doesn't, but at least that was my experience. That it's, and what I love about this is like, it's constantly like changing. And like sometimes it's chaotic, but every day is completely like different. You gotta have like a new challenge, and that's just the way my brain works. And maybe that's the entrepreneurial brain, but there's so much creativity and adaptability. And it's not just a system.
Your systems should never inhibit you. They should always like enhance your process.
Yeah.
And if they're ever getting to a point where you're like, I don't want to do this system, or like, right, like that feeling of like, I have to do this again.
Yeah.
Like that's an indicator to me, like your system is not working.
Yeah.
So you need to adjust the system in some capacity.
Absolutely.
So I have a question for you.
Yeah.
So I think sometimes for so many people, and like I know that I've even struggled with this, like walking this line between doing what you're passionate about and really making a lot of money doing it. Like having a bank account like really match the passion and like the work that you're putting into what you're doing. Like, do you have maybe even like a piece of advice for people, or like how do you walk that line of like, because systems typically bring us money, right? Like systems, when we have a system in place, it's automated income. But like, how do you walk that line of like creating the like financial like security like with the systems, but also like staying true to like your passion?
Yeah, so that's an interesting one, because when I first started on this path of coaching, I didn't have too much of a mindset of like, this is going to make me money, right? And then once I realized that I liked coaching, I was like, okay, so how do I make money, right? Because I love making money. I love money. Like, I think money is awesome. It's fun. It like opens doors. It's like makes the world go around. And I think where we get in trouble sometimes is thinking that money is sleazy, that money is gross, that, like we should be altruistic. And that was like a huge issue I saw in the nonprofit world, was like, it was really frowned upon to ask for a raise. Like you were being greedy. And I was like, that doesn't work for me. Like there should never be a ceiling, or at least I don't ever want a ceiling on my earning potential. And I want the ceiling to be whatever I have decided. Right? I've decided that this is enough, and so this is where I'm going to stay. I don't ever want like an external ceiling to be put on me. And so with some clients, like if they have this passion of like, I want to teach, or I want to do art, or I want to do something that traditionally doesn't make money in our eyes, we get real creative. I'm like, okay, so how can you make money? What does that look like? Because we finally reached this place where like, that makes me so excited in the world, where you can make money doing things that traditionally didn't make a lot of money. So cool. If teaching is super important to you, like I get a ton of teachers that come to me and they're like, I'm burnt out. Like either I don't get paid enough, I'm not being rewarded, I'm not being appreciated, I'm exhausted, like I'm not going anywhere. I'm still paying off like my bachelor's, and I'm 10 years into my teaching career, let alone my master's, right? And, you have to weigh. I think where it comes down is like weighing what is most important to you. And so like, are you willing to teach maybe somewhere where you're going to make more money? You might not be with like the demographic you want. Is there another way, so for instance, if you're going to switch to a charter or a private school, you're going to make more money. how are you going to reconcile not being with the demographic that you originally signed up to be teaching, right? If you were like originally looking to be with, underserved youth, like how are you going to discrepancy, and how else can you be helping that population? So like one thing for me in my business, I charge a higher price point, but I also take on one client per kind of like, I almost think of it like as per quarter, and I take them on at a very discounted rate. And that's someone who can't afford my services, but I know is either trying to start their own business or just really needs my help. And I would love to be able to help them. And I had created my business in a way that I will always be able to support at least one client at a time at that super discounted rate. And I can do that by charging more for my other clients who can afford it. So there's ways to get creative around that. There's no like one size fits all, but I think if something's really important to you and you also need to be able to make money, like think about it, start brainstorming, like how else can I market this? And such a big part for me I see is really just people's mindset. They don't feel comfortable charging what they're worth.
And it's I love that you have, I honestly even forgot about this, but in our photo shoot, like the money photos, throwing money, I like kind of forgot about I forgot about this like comfort that you have with like talking about money.
Yeah.
Like, so many people don't have, and like so many people are like, it's like shame or like embarrassment or just like not worthiness like around the topic. And I think, what do you think is like the biggest thing that like holds people back from that?
I think it's, I think a lot of it stems from like how we were raised. So if you look at how did your parents talk about money, that can usually be a big indicator for what your views are and your beliefs are around money. I also like doing an exercises like if money was a person, what would they be like? And so you list out a list of adjectives of how that person would behave if money was that person. And that can be a really clear indicator of what your relationship is. And then working on that, like how did I learn this certain belief? How did I learn that this was true? So if you think like money is confusing or mysterious or disappointing or whatever, like where did those beliefs come from? What were your experiences in which you learned that? And then can you create new experiences that counteract that belief system?
I think it's as we're talking about this is such a great topic because I'm sure I got some deeper, like I actually had with this full moon some like money stuff come up.
Yeah.
And I had this like deep like childhood experience that came up, and I've had some, I don't know if you can call them traumatic, but just some like really difficult money situations happen over the like past couple of years that have been like really in your face. I kept being like, I don't get it. What is happening?
Yeah.
Actually, I just want to talk about it. Like, so I had some situations because I think it's valuable to talk about it. So I've always been this guy that like great work ethic. Like you hire me to do something or it's contracted, whatever. Like I'm gonna go above and beyond, get it done on time, get it done when I say, like all that stuff. And I've always been that way. But like for some reason, like people forget to pay me on time, or they just forget to pay me, or there's this, and like for me, there's always been this like almost like chains, like this just, like I experienced this weekend of feeling like a 5-year-old boy trying to ask for my money, like super terrified.
Like, please, sir, man.
Like, well, yeah, but it's like this in my head, like, seriously.
Yeah.
And this subconscious, like this thing from my childhood came up where like I had a babysitter and she was like, oh, I'll give you $5 if you clean my car. So like, I was like somewhere between 7 and 9 years old, like super stoked, like, ooh, $5. Like, got in there, cleaned that car. Thing's never been so clean in its life, and she never paid me. And I kept trying to like throw hints like, oh, isn't your car really clean? Like, isn't it? Like just hoping she would remember. Never did, and I never found the voice to like ask for my money. Yeah. So that has now played out.
Stuck with you,
Yeah, and it's just played out in my life, and it was like I finally like I hope I had a breakthrough. It felt like a breakthrough, but I think when you're looking at money in general, it's not the money itself that's evil or great or any of the connotations object. It's the human being, because like at the end of the day, like I've heard so many people say, oh, money is the root of all evil. And it's like I argue that because you just want
I
to
think
blame.
humans are the
Yeah.
root of
Well,
evil.
it's like you want to blame an outward object for like your shit or
Yeah.
people's
Yeah.
shitty behavior when like at the end of the day, like you're the one that's like acting a certain way.
Yeah.
You know, like are you gonna like if I give you $1 million, are you gonna completely go against your morals and values?
Yeah.
Because you got $1 million, or are you gonna
Yeah.
stand strong on that? Like
Yeah.
I'm not saying that wouldn't be easy, hard or easy, whatever.
Sure.
But like it's about bringing it back here.
Yep.
You know, and owning, as you said earlier, owning your shit.
Yeah.
Around it.
Yep. Absolutely. Money is a fascinating. It's a fascinating thing. I grew up with a like I would say moderately like dysfunctional belief system around money, as many of us did. And my belief system was that there is always more money.
Yeah.
Like there's just, it never runs out. Like it just grows on trees, and that's an incredibly privileged belief system. Trust me, like I know that. And I think this whole conversation is coming from a place of privilege too, obviously. Like we're not talking about people who are struggling to put food on the table. But that was a big one for me when I moved out and I became a quote adult, and I was like, oh wait, there isn't an endless supply of money. It doesn't just keep coming. Oh, interesting. And it was a hard reality for me to have that relationship with money of like, but I thought you were endless, and now I'm finding out you're not. And now how do I even get you? Like that was a really hard shift for me to come around to, you know, and I also am in like an incredibly privileged position in which I have a partner who is also adding income to our household and has created a space where I can explore and can start a business and have that safety net. So, you know, I think it's not a one size fits all, but we all could benefit, I think, from looking at our relationship with money and understanding where it comes from instead of being afraid of it or being angry with it.
That's so interesting too. I love this conversation actually, because I think even just sitting here, all three of us have a very different relationship with money. And I would take so much of your story and your story into my relationship with money and say that, like, yes, I always saw money as ever flowing. Like there was always more. There was definitely always more of it. But I had this like very strong belief that you had to work hard to get it.
Yeah.
Like it was always going to come as long as you were putting in the work. But then I've recently found, John and I actually had a conversation about money this week, which is so interesting that we're talking about this now. For me, it's like knowing that it's always coming, can always be coming, but you have to be putting in the work. That's like led me to a place of not really knowing like my own worth within the money, not being able to like ask for what I believe I'm worth. Because like there's like inherent part of me that's like, well, does it really matter like how much I actually get paid? Because there's always going to be more like around the corner.
Oh, interesting.
Isn't that interesting?
That's a fascinating point of view.
Yeah. So I'm like constantly taking in the other person's like, well, why do they only want to pay me X amount, or why don't they think I'm worth that much?
Yeah. Yeah. Matt and I have complete like opposing views of money. Yeah. So he was like taught to save.
Okay.
And I was taught to spend. And so we've had to find like a middle ground between the two of like, you don't have to feel guilty about spending, and you do need to be responsible enough to like have a savings account.
Yes.
This is so, oh God, I'm so glad. I'm so glad. I didn't expect this to go here. So this is so exciting. So I have had a relationship with money that is this like feast or famine. Yeah. Like, and which has also, I don't know if you know this, but like I was at one point, they like said I was bipolar. Don't know if that's true or not, whatever. But so it was like these extreme highs and lows. Yeah. So it was interesting that my money also matched my emotional state. Sure. So like, I feel like I've done a lot of work to get to this more balanced place. Yeah. But it was for the longest time. It's like, and it's a certain number too, which is interesting. I would save 15 grand. Yeah. I started a business at 23. All went away. Yeah. Then I like save 15 grand, and then all these like money things that like recently happened, and then I had like none. And so I've like, it's the most interesting thing. I've had like 15 grand multiple times in my life, and then I've been like broke as like literally like negative $187. And it's like, so for me, it's like trying to identify like, what the F is that about? Yeah. Like you get to a ceiling, and then it's like you throw it all away. Yeah. So there's clearly like something there that says like, there's some belief that's like, oh, you have too much, like you got to get rid of it.
Yeah. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, like Matt's from the mentality of like so for instance, if we want to go on vacation, he's like, okay, how much money do we have to save to go on vacation? And my thought is, how much money do I have to make in order to go on vacation?
Ooh.
So
Yeah.
I am always about like,
Yep.
how much more additional income do I need to bring in order to do
Yes.
this next activity? And
Cool.
he's like, how much money do I need to save in order to do the
Oh,
activity?
that's so cool. Well, that's a good
Yeah.
balance point, though.
Yeah.
Because, like, if he's going to save and you're going to make more money anyway, then you're really.
Then we got even more money.
Yeah, you're killing it. And you're like, oh, we get to go on 2 vacations.
Yeah. I mean, like when I wanted to hire the business coach, I was like, okay, how many more clients do I need to sign on in order to justify hiring the coach?
That's
Yep.
so cool.
Versus how much money, like how many months do I have to save?
How much more disciplined do I have to be?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
really cool.
It's interesting. Our mindsets are just fascinating around
People
money.
are so cool.
Oh, God, I'm so
And it's
glad-
all about like how we were raised. Like
100%.
we were raised this way.
Or just like those little moments.
And now like being pregnant, I've been thinking a lot like, how are we going to raise our child to
Yeah.
make money? Like what will be their thought process
Yeah.
around that?
Ooh, let's
They're
talk-
gonna be like, let me save, let me spend, let me save, let me spend.
Yeah.
I'm just like,
They're gonna be like-
I think you guys have a great balance. Well, God, this really is so interesting. I feel like I want to like go talk to someone about this later and like let's do some like psychic readings into this.
Yeah.
Because it's like, I'm 30 and money comes and goes, but it's like I also like I'm at the point where like my big goal this year is to be completely 100% debt free, which like
Great.
I'm moving
That's a
towards.
great goal.
But like for me,
Yeah.
it's like I don't know anyone anything that makes you able to stack it. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? So like that's something I'm excited about, but it's just
That was a huge goal for Matt and I to be debt free. We worked very, very hard
Yeah.
to do that very quickly.
Yeah.
I was really impressed with both of us paying off our student
Yeah.
loans, and
it's amazing.
like we really committed to that. And now we're very committed to like our IRA and our 401k,
Yeah.
maxing that out every year. So he's so great at like creating a budget. I hate creating a budget. I think it's no fun. I'm like, it feels restrictive to me. I'm
So
like, I would
funny.
rather just make more money and
So
never
funny.
have a budget.
So funny.
You
Yeah,
know?
that's so interesting.
I'm like kind of the same way, but I actually had a viewpoint that said like it's actually a form of self love,
Yeah,
which
it
like
is.
completely changed
Yeah.
my mindset. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm still like I have a sort of budget.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I still like kind of like dance on stuff sometimes,
Yeah.
but
I never had a budget before, Matt.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's interesting.
it's hilarious.
Wow, that's so interesting. Let's talk about like motherhood.
Okay.
Yeah, we're
This
driving
is
on
so fun.
Yeah, you're
It's
driving
so
the Breast
exciting.
Express, so my
Breast
Yeah.
Express.
that's what it's called. It's the Breast Express.
I can't
So
wait to
fun
see
fact,
it.
I think I told you this.
Yeah.
Our event on Tuesday, tomorrow, is right around the corner.
I know, that's amazing.
So
Where is it
crazy.
at?
You're like I have no
One
idea.
of the nut streets, maybe.
I know there's a lot
It's
of.
like Walnut, Chestnut, like I don't know. It's like 0.3 or 0.6 miles away.
What is the event for?
So the bus that we drive,
Yeah.
the app is called Pump Spotting.
Yeah.
And they do like baby shows and like events all
Oh,
around the
cool.
country. So that's like our like job as like driving this bus is
Yeah.
to get it to all these shows
Yeah.
like across the country.
That's awesome.
Yeah, to promote breastfeeding. So
Yay.
yeah,
Breastfeeding.
so fun. How do you feel about like this, like how like pregnancy and like starting your business, like all it's kind of like all within the same year, and like
Yes,
you've kind of been
it
on
is.
like a roll with like life and like
Yeah.
you didn't even get married that long, like
Yeah, we got married about like year and a half
year and a half
ago.
ago.
September will be 2 years.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it's like do you feel like you're just on?
Congratulations.
Yeah,
First of all.
congratulations again and again.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because I think part of it, like in a perfect world, and I'm not like in hypothetical and I'm not a past thinker, so this is very hard for me to like put this hat on.
Yeah.
But I think in a perfect world, like Matt and I would have met younger, or I would just be younger, right? Like, because I'm 34 and like was pretty adamant about having kids before 40. My parents had me when my mom was 40, and then my sister when she was 43. And like, I don't want to be that old. Like, I want to be younger, and I want to be like around longer for my kids' lives. And that was something that like has stuck with me since I was a kid, and like always wanting that. So I definitely felt a lot of pressure on myself, like that I had put on myself to start having a family within the next year or two. And it's hard because you never know how long it's going to take to get pregnant.
Yeah.
And so like I have friends who it's hard. It's not coming easy and it's taking a lot of time. And, like, so you just don't know. Of course, we got pregnant in like 3 months. I was like, okay, that was fast. We weren't expecting that. But, I wanted to get that ball rolling sooner rather than later. And I'm I'm an incredibly decisive person. So I do not like seesaw. I do not weigh options. I'm not like a data collector. Like I'm a very decisive individual. So it's like, I'm ready to do this. I'm ready to do this now. Here we go.
Yeah.
I also don't see limits really, which can be a fault for sure. There are times that's bitten me in the butt, but I don't see any limiting beliefs aside from any that I self-impose on getting pregnant and starting a business at the same time. To me, that seems reasonable.
Yeah.
I could see how that could not seem reasonable to some. But I believe like there's this awesome woman, her name's Seed and Sow on Instagram. You should check her out. But she talks all about like having a village and cultivating a village to support you in any project you're doing. And it's mostly she's talking around kiddos and like raising kids. But I was like, yeah, why can't I just like collect humans to like support me in the different areas I'm going to need support and then like just move this whole truck forward. I don't see like I would never want to do this by myself. I'm very fortunate in that I don't have to. I've got a lot of support, a lot of great family, a lot of great friends. And then I'm a big fan of like outsourcing things that I either don't enjoy doing or don't have time to do. So I brought on an amazing resume writer who's like an expert in writing resumes. And so she's joined my team. And so I've outsourced part of that business and then, hiring the business coach to systematize some of the things. And to me, it just like, of course it's going to be hard when he comes, but like, I'm just so game for that. I don't know. Like that seems reasonable to me.
Yeah.
I love that because it just goes back to our point earlier. Like you could make a list of 1,000 reasons why it work or 1,000 why it won't. You know what I mean? And I think that that's powerful because I think what I've realized about life doing corporate, working for small businesses, having a small business is that like there's going to be challenges no matter which arena you step into. So it's just about like, you have to decide like, I really want this or I don't. And it's like, I've always been kind of like a black and white thinking. And like, I've tried to turn that more to like some gray area and like, but I'm very decisive too and not like a huge delay. And that's definitely kicking me in the ass.
Yeah, sure. It does.
But like you start to learn like, okay, well maybe think about like a little bit of the consequences, but it's just that like, am I going to do this or not? And like, either I'm going to go all in because there's no point in like, I'm like sort of like into this. Like why? Yeah. There's no point.
Yeah.
So I think that's a very valuable point of view.
Well, I feel like that indecisiveness too, like that creates resistance, which just like you're fighting kind of like upstream when you're doing that to yourself. So it's like, if you know that you're all in, and it sounds like you very much are, as you're like preparing to like kind of have parts of your business like run themselves, right?
Yeah.
So it's like really taking those like steps ahead of time. It's like kind of cool to like see how like the timing works out.
Yeah. I'm excited. And like, there's a couple of things that I'm working on. I'm working on putting together a group coaching program right now for women specifically who are like struggling, who don't necessarily want to leave their job, but are struggling in their current job. So it's like a program pretty much designed for the me in Colorado that could not figure how the hell to speak up. It's for those people. And so like, I'm really excited to launch that in the next month and have that kind of sustain me until I'm ready to start slowing down for a bit. And then working on creating a couple like more DIY type courses for resume writing, LinkedIn development, things like that will take me like through my maternity leave and then I can start back up again. So
that's so cool.
So I was just thinking about how you talk about how you got married a year and a half ago, started the business like a year ago, right? And like now you're getting pregnant. Like, to me, like when I read your resume where it's like, oh, I couldn't find a voice, and like all of a sudden you're doing this work where you really found a voice and now you're giving it to others, like
Yeah.
now you're doing this.
Yeah.
Isn't that kind of interesting?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you're stepping into like,
Yeah.
okay, here's what I
The
really
person you
Yeah.
are that you will probably have resistance.
and
to
life's like,
before.
okay,
Absolutely.
all right, let's just here's the wave.
Yeah.
Right?
Well,
Yeah.
what's so cool about that too is, and we find this with like all of the people that we have on our podcast, I'd say, that's like what you end up doing or what you're doing is the person that you kind of
That
needed
you needed.
so
Yeah.
badly.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
like with that, like, do you find that like you are drawing in like a certain clientele, like very similar people?
This past week was really interesting because I had a wonderful discovery call with a woman on the West Coast who was like, I've received feedback in my review that I'm too direct, I'm too aggressive, I'm like dominating, and that I need to like tone it down. And she's like, I don't, like, what do I do with that feedback? Like, I'm just so lost. And she is the, I think like third or fourth female who has called me with that exact same sentence. And I was like, this is fascinating. Like, so it's like two sides of the coin, right? Like I have on one side the people that are like really struggling to use their voice and they can't figure out how to do that. And then on the other side, it's women who are using their voice and they're getting reprimanded for doing it. And so it's like, okay, what is, like, what's the solution there? What is the even like keel? What is the middle line? And it's a very tricky, you know, it's called like the double bind for women. I don't know if you're familiar with this terminology, but it's like, if you're too assertive, and you see this a lot with female politicians, like if you're too assertive, you're seen as aggressive. If you're too sweet, you're seen as like incapable of leadership. And so like, how do you find that middle road? And so there's like, I've done a lot of research on this and a lot of reading and continuing to absorb information on how to coach on this in-between space. And like the best way I can tell you is like an example. So if you as a female like manager wanted something to be done by 4 p.m. today, right? If I said to you, I need this done by 4 p.m. and I walked away, you'd be like, ouch.
Yeah.
But if I said, do you think like maybe possibly you could possibly maybe get this done by 4? No worries if you can't, right? You'd be like, I'm not listening to you.
Yeah.
So an in between is like, I really need this by 4 p.m. Are you available to make that happen?
Yeah.
Right? Then you're like, oh, okay. Like I get your need and I feel like you've asked for permission to like be part of this. Mm-hmm. So teaching women how to have that in between, because some of us do come on super strong and that's like, I don't even think a gender specific thing. Like some of us just have really intense personalities and some of us could use a little more intensity. So I'm excited to like find that middle space, right, for some of us. And I think like I think emotional intelligence plays a big role in that too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why are you laughing?
Yeah. What are you laughing at?
Because this is like basically the whole reason we argued. 100% like the whole time. Like
we had to diffuse an argument this morning before we came.
Well, it's
to the
because
podcast.
Yeah, we're both. I think we both have that like aggressive personality, and like it comes off like sometimes if you're not mindful of it.
Yeah, it can come off as you're being a dick.
Yeah, you're being like 100% straight up. And then like if you're like in my eyes, if you're a person that like values being respected and like you're basically it's like it's an instant fuck you. Like okay, so you don't respect me, I'll do the exact opposite.
And you shut down.
Yeah. Exactly.
And we really don't want that to be happening, especially at work.
Or
right, like
40-foot bus.
Or in a 40-foot closed container where you could strangle each other. Don't you? Yeah, it's an interesting. It's one of the reasons in which women are not passing middle management positions. Like it's one of the reasons why we're not seeing more women in roles of leadership. Is it's so tricky to walk that line. Yeah.
But I think that's a male thing too, because like whether you're a woman or a man that like comes at me like that, like how you say it, like I look at like someone like The Rock. It's my favorite guy alive. Like if you don't know, like I love The Rock. Like I think of him as like he's got this huge team leadership, and I feel like he's always very mindful of those things. And granted, I've never seen him do it, and we're all human. But like that's what makes it so complicated is that you have to be so aware of your own emotional state and like. Because, like, you might do it 9 out of 10 times in a polite way, but there's that one day where you're walk around New York City all day and you're sweaty and you're just like at your
New York City will do that to you.
you're at your like
Matt and
wits
I
end
have
and you're
like
just, like,
had our
losing.
fewest arguments, and they have been in New York City. I think
Oh my
because
gosh,
it's
that's
so hot.
Yeah.
It's like it just gets hot, and there's so many humans, and you're like, "Bah,
so many noises.
stop talking to me and touching me." Yes, there's so many people. Yeah. Sorry.
Oh,
No,
that's
this is
so
great.
tangent.
This is great. This is like the real stuff.
Well, you're talking a little bit too about touching on what's called servant leadership, which is something I'm really interested in. Have you heard of this?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
100%.
it's about like as a leader asking the question like, how can I help you be the best version of yourself, right? Like, how can I help you succeed in this position? And that's a big, like, that's something I'd really be interested in touching on at some point. Like right now, I feel like I'm working with the people who are being affected by poor leadership, and eventually it would be great to be working with leaders.
Well, I think so. So I might change the language around that a little bit.
Yeah.
And that, like, I know for me, I've fallen in love with potential a lot, whether it be friendships, romantic, and it's just like you just keep waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting. And so, like, for a long time, like, I felt like I was a person that needed help. But what I've realized over time, the word help in itself is, like, in my eyes, saying that you can't do it on your own, which is BS. Every single human has the capability. So it's like, how can I inspire you to be like what I see or the best version of yourself? Like, how can I get you to level up? How can I support you in like seeing that like you have so much more in the tank?
Yeah, absolutely.
You know?
Yeah.
And
It's kind of like, this is where I want you to go. Like this, I want you to get on this train and go to this spot. How do I encourage you to do that on your own volition?
Yeah.
Well, I think too, a lot of times like that, because I can relate to that a lot, like dating or friendships or businesses where you're in, you see the potential, but I think a lot of that comes right back to yourself. It's like maybe you're just, it's like it's such a mirror, and I'm just thinking on past like different relationships in my life. It's like I saw the potential, but it's like you're outwardly trying to find the potential in someone else instead of like really stepping into like the potential that you have as like your own person. So I think a lot of times it's just a mirror for yourself, and realizing that you yourself are capable of so much more as well.
So there's one thing I want to talk about. So we tried not just make this a rainbows and ponies podcast, like talk about some of the tough stuff. So you talked about how your first 6 months you didn't get coaching, and you know, it was a lot of trial and error. So could you, I know you said you're not much of a past thinker, but could you try and like kind of give some people maybe like, I don't know, top 2 challenges, top 3, or whatever comes to mind, like just some like real like tough stuff that you went through in that first 6 months, really trying to make that work.
Starting my business?
Yeah. Or maybe there was
Yeah. So I would say,
even if it's just one.
like one of the biggest challenges for me has been Instagram, and like being face forward on Instagram. That's been a tough one for me. And then when I got pregnant, I was like, I'm fat and ugly and blah, 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 blah. All the things that I yell at my clients forever speaking on the phone. I was like saying all of that. And so like a big hurdle for me has been like understanding on one hand that I get the most responses and the most feedback and the most engagement when I do get on my stories or when I do post pictures of myself, when I'm talking, when I'm forward facing. And then on the flip side, like the discomfort in that forward facing space. So that's been a hard one for me, and trying to find like, what are some small ways that make me feel more comfortable? And so like some days that might be a filter, right? Like that might be something stupid that like, this makes me feel pretty and I'm going to do it today. Yeah. Or, you know, like holding the phone at a certain angle or being in a certain lighting. And like, we're not immune to like to some of that vanity, right? And I think that can be, it's a tricky part of like this virtual space that we exist in. And like my whole business is virtual. I do not see clients face to face. I do everything on the phone or on Zoom. And so like I do have to have a very strong presence in the virtual world in order to be successful. So that's been, I would say like the biggest hurdle for me is getting out of my own way. And being like, it just doesn't matter, like what your face looks like. I'm sorry, but that's like not why they're signing up.
Yeah,
Like that's
yeah,
just
yeah.
not the that's not the linchpin here. Like
Yeah.
so I would say that was one obstacle. You know, the like getting sick in pregnancy, that was a big obstacle for me. That was really hard, and I remedied that by hiring a coach. I'm really like, I think it falls into the decisiveness. If I see a problem, I'm usually pretty quick to finding a solution because I hate wasting time. And so actually, I don't believe in wasting time. I just hate spending time in ways I don't want to be spending it. So yeah, I would say those were like the two obstacles I had the hardest time with. I'm fortunate in that like pricing and raising my rates has never been hard for me. I'm always like, I always know when that is appropriate and ready to go. I know that is something that a lot of people struggle with. Yeah. So give me a call if that's something you're struggling with, because we can talk about it. I know that's a big one for many people. So yeah.
I love that. I have a question for you, especially coming from like Boulder, which is like very community oriented and very like so many people in such a friendly place, and just everyone's out and about like doing so much. To moving to New Jersey, like what is like, how like important is community for you, and like how have you kind of like carried that over into your like new lifestyle? Yeah, community has always been super important to me. I don't know if you like do the Enneagram at all, but I'm a 2. So I'm a big helper. Like that's like my main driving goal in life is to be helping, which in order to be helping, you have to have someone to help. Yeah. So I need like a lot of people. I need a big community. I'm also a big extrovert. So being social is very important to me. And that was really hard when we first moved here. I used to call all of my friends in Boulder like every single week. I'd be like, so I miss you. If you wanted to just talk for a second. And I found a lot of community through my gym, through my CrossFit gym here that I go to every day. I have a great community there. And then I get a lot of community out of my clients. So that fulfills a lot of like my need to like talk and converse and connect. And then the 2 women I work with in Vermont, that's the other way I've created community. So I go up to Vermont once a month to do gender equity work. And I will encourage you to look up the difference between equity and equality, because those are 2 different words. Okay, you hear that, everyone? Yep. So like super simple, easy way to understand. Equality is like everybody gets some. Equity is everybody gets exactly what they need. So if you're thinking of like, my favorite example is a bicycle. So equity would be all 3 of us get a bicycle, or sorry, equality would be all 3 of us get a bicycle. Equity would be you get a tall bicycle, you get a short bicycle, I get a bicycle that lets me use my arms because I really like doing that, right? So we all get access to a bicycle, but we get the bicycle we really need. So that's a little bit different spin on that. So I do gender equity work up in Vermont, working with businesses to help them institute more gender equitable practices in their businesses where they have like pretty male dominated fields. So how to do like hiring, promotion, and retention practices for women and just non-male identifying folks, how to keep those folks happy and working and staying there and getting promoted and making money. So that's another way in which I gauge with community. Yeah, I love that. Yeah. That's incredible. Tell me more about CrossFit. Yeah, you just had a competition. Yeah, I had a competition this weekend. It was super fun. I was really excited. So my partner and I signed up before I was pregnant. And so we signed up for like the RX division, which is like the heavy hitters. And then I was like out all of April because I was so sick I couldn't even go work out. And but the competition was really sweet. They let me like do scaled and modified versions of things and let my partner still do all the RX. So that was great. There was probably, I would guess, at least 100 athletes competing. And we did really well. We like couldn't place at all just because I was doing scaled, but yeah, we placed, in our minds, we were first. Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah. Nice. Wow, that's so cool. Oops, sorry. Is everything powering down?
Instagram will last an hour. So
that's okay.
I mean, my computer powered down, but it's alright.
Yep.
Yours is set on. That's amazing.
Keep talking.
So when did Were you always a CrossFitter, or did that become like one of your
Yeah,
new pleasures?
no, I did that in Colorado. I did CrossFit as well as like swimming and biking in Colorado, and then CrossFit here predominantly, as they don't really do outdoor sports here. So
Yeah, for sure.
CrossFit has definitely like taken the forefront for me for that, and I just love it. I love lifting heavy shit, and I just feel like so badass doing it, right? Like you just feel really good, and it's a cool space where it's encouraged for women to be really strong.
Yeah.
So I like that part of it, and yeah, it's all about community. Like everybody just cheers each other on the whole time, and yeah.
I've gone to CrossFit, so there's this girl I was dating, and I went to like a few classes, and like I loved it. It was
It's so fun.
Everyone's
the
like,
energy's
let's
so
go. No one
awesome.
knows me, and they're like, let's go.
Yeah.
I'm like on the ropes.
I can do this.
Let's go. You know, it's so much more fired up. Like,
oh yeah, I'm definitely a group fitness person. I do not like working out by myself. I will never do it.
it's so. I'm like mixed because like the few times I've gone to that, like love it, but I also I know that working out by yourself can be such a challenge. But I look at it as like I don't know, like a way to, it's almost like a meditation, like a way to conquer the mind, because you're like just by yourself, and like you're sneaky ego. It's like, I'll just get that set.
Yeah.
Like, wow, that sounds really good. And it takes like a lot to be like, no, like we're gonna do that set, you know. So I think but it's also sick to have like someone like cheering, like 15 people cheering around, like I can lift like 9 million pounds. Like, I just remember that experience. Yeah,
that's not you.
I like yoga and hiking and long walks.
Yeah,
I like the intensity.
I like intensity. Yeah.
I'm a fire.
That's so interesting.
Yeah, I'm a pitta.
What's your is it astrological sign? Is that the one?
Zodiac?
I'm a Sagittarius. There we go.
I'm a Pisces, so
you're
like
water.
Yeah.
Interesting.
We're very emotional water beings.
Yeah, I'm Leo.
I cry all the time. It's fine.
Me too.
It's cool. I cried at the gym. Right? In New York City. Like I knew I needed to cry in the morning, and it just like wasn't coming out, and then all of a sudden it always like right in the gym. I'm like, perfect. How's it going in New York City?
I'm crying.
Crushing weights and just crying.
Yeah.
Oh,
awesome.
This has been so great.
I have one more question though, because we talked about it in the beginning. Like, so in your description or introduction, you said you have a very specific who's for you.
Yeah.
Can you tell us and the humans who that is? And then also talking about how I like you're discussing, I do take male clients, but it's only these ones.
Yeah.
I like that. Like, why not? Yeah, like that's your.
Yeah, for a while I thought I was like going to be women specific. And I struggled so much with that because I'm like, okay, so I'm now saying that like I am not for 50% of our population. And that was hard for me. I was like, I don't feel good about like closing that door all the way. But I did also have I have tried a couple male clients that didn't work. Like it just was not a good fit. And that was like a big piece for me, was getting over that, like, I'm not for everyone, because that was a huge part of like my upbringing, is being like very likable, like I'm a people pleaser, right? Like the worst thing you could ever say is like, I don't like you. Like that was just like soul crushing, right? And thankfully I've gotten over that, and now I'm like, well, that's okay. I'm not for everyone. Like, see you later. Have a good day. So, the people that I do best with are people that are like legit ready for change. Like, and that is an interesting qualifier, because a lot of us are like, yeah, I'm ready for change. But like when it really comes to like boots to the pavement, like, are you going to do the action it takes, like it's required to move yourself forward? And if the answer is still like, I'm not totally sure, like this probably isn't the program for you. This is really a program for like, I am sick to death of my current status, and I'm willing to do almost anything to be different than what I am.
Do you work with entrepreneurs as well, or people who are?
I do, yep. So I have a couple business clients that I do like business coaching, and I love doing that. I do mostly like, I'm more for very, very beginning entrepreneurs. So like just getting like your personal branding down, understanding who your clientele is, what demographic you're for, understanding pricing. So I do that kind of coaching, not so much for someone, like I wouldn't be well equipped to coach someone who's already been in their business for a year or so. just because like I'm also only been in my business for a year. So that's not really where I excel the most, but definitely with people who are like, I have an idea, I'm not sure if this is a good idea. How do I figure that out? I have a great toolkit that takes you through like figuring out whether or not your business idea is a viable option.
Cool.
Because not every business idea is, and it's hard. A lot of people aren't willing to tell you like, that's not going to work.
Yeah.
I'm willing to tell you that's probably not going to work. And then help you figure out what will work, make something else work. So yeah, so clients, I do career coaching specifically, people that are looking to either change into a completely different field or make like a lateral shift within their own field, or a vertical shift. It could be like if you're looking for a promotion. I do a lot of like salary negotiation coaching, so understanding like the 3 numbers you need to know going into your negotiation. And then I just started doing this Own Your Space coaching. And so this is more for people who don't want to quit their job, but they want to make their current job work for them. And so those are people that aren't getting credit for the work they're doing. Like if you notice every time you do a project, Paul is like getting the accolades for the work you did. And you're like, why does this keep happening? Why is like no one seeing me? Or even kind of like, why is no one paying me? Right? Like, so coaching around that, as well as women are asked 44% more times to quote volunteer for work in businesses than men are. And so those are more like low visibility, non-promotable tasks is what they're called. So things like note taking, making copies, getting coffee, like doing more kind of like admin based responsibilities that aren't necessarily part of your job description, but it's like somebody's got to do it. You call it like office housework, pretty much, office chores. So women are 44% more likely to be requested to do that work than men. And so I work specifically on how to navigate that, because just saying like, no, I'm not willing to do that isn't really an option. You can get reprimanded and seen poorly for just saying no. So there are ways to navigate that. And then working with people who have like really strong perfectionist tendencies. So they're either like incapable of carrying like a normal workload because they're getting like hung up on one specific task, right? And then like they get to the end of the day and their boss is like, this isn't done. And they're like, no, I'm still on step 1 of 10 steps. Mm-hmm. Or people who are staying, I had one client who was like staying till 8 p.m. every night and the workday ends at 6. And it was like, okay, we need to figure out how you can drop some of those perfectionist tendencies. So that's where you bring up things like the 80-20 rule. So like what's a version of this project that takes 20% of the work but yields 80% of the results. And so we talk on like how to have that mindset around work of like, I don't need this to be perfect. I need it to be good enough to move forward.
Cool.
Yeah.
So nice.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
This has been such a good conversation.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So
Super
glad.
fun. I'm so glad you guys were able to swing by.
Yeah.
And now the sun has come out
I
for
know.
you. What are you guys going to do for the rest of your day?
We have the day off.
I don't know. You're gonna tell us all the cool things.
So
Yeah.
exciting.
Well, we do have to get the bus fixed.
Mm-mm.
Our stairs are broken.
Oh, no.
But that's fine.
We do have to get that fixed.
So if you know an RV mechanic,
I do know a
Anyone
wonderful.
out there?
Anyone out there?
anyone knows an RV mechanic in Montclair, New Jersey.
Well, you can try ETD. That's where we take our car. I don't know if they do RVs, but you could call them. They're amazing.
We'll just have to ask the people.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're gonna sidetrack.
Well,
Sidetracked. You'll edit that out.
Yeah, it's cool. What so we want to end with what we always end with. What does living with a wild heart mean to you?
Oh, Matt, help me answer this
Oh,
question.
yeah?
We were
Should we phone a friend?
brainstorming. We were brainstorming back and forth on it. Phone a friend.
Should we call
Matt,
it?
are you in a meeting? So we were talking about wild heart, and we were thinking, it brought up the imagery for me of, have you read the book Feral?
No.
I think I've heard of it. But yeah,
Okay, so this is a great book about like, it's like the returning to our like authentic selves, and he talks about like the returning to nature and like the re-feralizing of ourselves and our soul. So that was the immediate thought that came up to me for Wild Heart, is like returning to that feral nature that lives within all of us, that like we truly want to reconnect to that nature. And it's all of like the social conditioning, the parenting, the schooling, our work experiences, like all of that gets layered on top of our innate like feralness. And so a wild heart is like breaking all that shit off and getting right back to that authentic
I love
self.
that.
Yeah.
Well, that's so much of your business. Like,
I know.
isn't
When I
it?
was thinking about it, I was
Yeah.
like, this is actually part of my personal brand statement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that so much.
I just wish I could like watch more people just like rip their shirt off and beat on their chest and just like have long hair
Yeah,
and, like,
and
scream
run around
out, like, the
barefoot
wild
and-
man.
yeah.
Like, ugh.
That's
I
how I feel
literally
about
went
my
to a
hair
men's
right now.
retreat where we like cultivated the wild man.
Yeah.
And I just like screamed out loud. It's just like, yes.
This is so
Hey.
fun.
Fuck yes.
Yeah. Where can the people find you?
So you can find me on Instagram at Emily_Eley, ELEY_coaching. You can also go to my website, which is emilyeley.com. And then definitely connect with me on LinkedIn. That's like a
Ooh.
big sphere that I operate in. So if you're in the professional world, look me up on LinkedIn.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yay.
Woohoo! And stay tuned for group coaching. It's
Oh,
gonna
yeah.
be fun. I'm super excited to get that going.
So cool.
Yeah.
Oh, yay.
All right, guys. Well, thank you very
Thanks
much.
for watching.
Have a great week.